Now it's time for our issue segment that airs every Tuesday and Thursday. In fact, I get a lot of positive responses from viewers about last Thursday's in-depth look at the Illinois governor race. Today, our focus is squarely on Illinois' pension problem, which by all accounts is the worst pension crisis in the country. But first, let's talk about exactly what a pension is. A pension is defined as an employer-sponsored retirement plan that provides a steady income for life once you stop working. It's, of course, different from both a 401k and Social Security benefits, partly because it's more lucrative than both, and it's also different from a 401k because it's the employer and not the employee who carries the investment risk and manage the funds. Pensions can come from private employers, but the vast majority are public, state or federal employers. Illinois has 677 pension funds. 5 of them are funded and run by state government. They make up 2/3 of the state's total pension debt. They are the General Assembly Retirement System, State Employees Retirement System, State Universities Retirement System, Teachers Retirement System, and Judges Retirement System. The remaining pension funds are for public workers in counties and municipal governments, as well as police and firefighters. Unfunded pension liability is a big deal. All told, Illinois carries $493 billion in pension liabilities. $218 billion of those liabilities are unfunded. So as you can see, this makes Illinois by far the most unfunded pension liability in the country. Put another way, according to the Illinois Policy Institute, a nonpartisan and nonprofit group, if the state paid an extra $1 million every day to pay down its pension debt, it would take nearly 600 years to fill that hole. Well, we thought we'd talk to one of the experts about this pension problem in Illinois. Lylena Estabine is a policy researcher from the Illinois Policy Institute. Thanks for joining us, first of all. And then tell us.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And tell us a little quickly about what the Illinois Policy Institute is all about.
Yes, we're a free market think tank here in Illinois. We're focused on state and local issues and specifically taxpayer advocacy, trying to advocate for better fiscal policy for our state to make it attractive for businesses and people to live here.
And it's nonpartisan, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, well, very good. Well, you seem like the perfect person to talk to about Illinois' pension problem. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's the highest spending debt per capita Illinois does by a long shot in the U.S. Most underfunded pensions. Illinois has, again, by far the largest pension shortfall in the country. So before we talk to you about how to get out of it, and I know you have some work that you've just done on that, let's first talk about how did we get here?
Yeah, this has been a crisis that is over 50 years in the making. We can look all the way back to 1970 when Illinois was doing its constitutional convention. They inserted the Pension Protection Clause. And by itself, the Pension Protection Clause isn't necessarily a problem. But what we've seen is that our state Supreme Court has interpreted that to protect not only benefits that are earned, but also not yet accrued benefits. So that has allowed these benefits that are overpromised to continue spiraling out of control faster than taxpayers can keep up with them.
Okay, and this is something that was done so long ago, but it does put in some burdens for lawmakers to try to solve problems because there are some limitations, is that right?
There are, exactly. So states like Colorado and Rhode Island have been able to make moderate reforms to things like the cost of living adjustment, able to reduce it so that it is able to so that pensioners' benefits are able to rise with inflation and with how much money the state has on hand. But in Illinois, a large number of our Tier 1 pensioners are getting benefits increased each year at a 3% compounding rate. That is way faster than inflation and far faster than we can keep up with.
It's like we're shoveling and digging deeper in a hole, right?
Exactly.
So now we found out what the problem is. How are we going to get out of this problem? How are we going to dig out of this hole? And I know you've done some research and had a report on this recently, right?
Yes. So there are things that state lawmakers can do. Just because the last 50 years were this series of making more promises than we can keep up with doesn't mean that the next 50 years have to be disastrous for us. So one thing that state lawmakers could do is change that pension protection clause so that we can make moderate benefits like other states have. But that is not the only thing that's possible to make modest reforms. So One option is to allow for more pensioners to opt in to a defined contribution system. That's more similar to like a 401k that many private employees have. And what that does is that allows them to have more control over their money. It also better serves short and medium term workers who don't want to stay in one job for 10 to 20 years, which is who pensions are designed for. Currently, the only pensioners that are able to have that option are people in the state university retirement system. But for those employees, it's proved to be a popular option with about 20% of people opting in. And the estimate is that about 30% of employees in this system by the next 20 years will have opted into that defined contribution plan. Another option is to extend for downstate, local, and police retirees what state employees have the option of doing, which is a pension buyout. And that allows you to get your lifetime pension benefits at a discount all at once instead of spread out over many years. What that does for pensioners is it allows them to have all of that money. They can put it into a 401k, invest it how they want. Maybe they have medical bills or they want to make a down payment on their house. All of those things are possible for them when they get that money. And for the state and for taxpayers, that's giving them a discount. So it's reducing the unfunded liabilities that we have.
If we don't take some of these steps, are we in real danger of insolvency, especially in Chicago?
Yes, especially in Chicago. We've already seen a glimpse of that. Just recently, the Chicago fire retirement system didn't have the money on hand to pay its retirees in September. So Mayor Brandon Johnson had to use some of the city's reserve funds to make that payment. Good thing that they had those on hand, but those funds are running out as Chicago's budget woes continue to rage on. So what we are seeing is that even though pensions are a promise and we want to be able to support our public sector workers into their retirement, they've certainly earned it and they deserve a steady, consistent retirement income. But if lawmakers continue to promise beyond what they are capable of paying, then that promise will not be able to come to fruition. Because when there's not enough money on the books in the system to pay out those pensioners, they're going to get massive cuts to their retirement benefits. And that's not fair to them. So what should be happening is lawmakers should be taking the necessary steps, making the hard but necessary choices to get our state's financial system back on track. And that has to start with structural pension reform.
And again, this month, Esta Bean authored a research article for Illinois Policy Institute called The 4 Ways to Break Out of the Pension Trap. You can find that article at illinoispolicy.org. I thought it was a great second person to interview for this segment would be John Capello, who not only is a state representative who could also receive a pension for that, although he is declining it, he says, but he's also a Rockford police officer who will receive a pension for that. I started off by asking Cabello to put on his lawmaker's cap to tell us how we got here and how we can dig out.
The way we got to where we are, our lawmakers, lies strictly in their laps. So they've always voted for pension holidays, and they always voted to have pension sweeteners and enhancements. Before I came into the General Assembly, they had it where somebody could work as a teacher for one day and get a pension for the rest of their lives. So there was a lot of mismanagement. They started not making those pension payments because they just said, we'll kick it down the road.
Right. And that goes all the way back to even like Jim Edgar and James Thompson, that far away.
And then they had the ramp up where, we'll pay a little bit today and we'll pay a lot later. Well, how does that work? That doesn't work at all. The one thing we have to remember is that no employee has ever missed a pension payment. So we can't blame the employees. It lies squarely in the laps of the lawmakers. Once they went to the Tier 2 system, that was supposed to solve a lot of problems, but it didn't. Because they realize now that you have people doing the same jobs that get different benefits. So one police officer or one firefighter could be out there doing the same job on a Tier 1 that Tier 2 is doing, and God forbid, both of them get killed on the same call, their families get different benefits. So now there's a change to try to bring that to parity, because that's the way it should be.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we thought we had that done, but then unfortunately the lawmakers added every single person that's on a pension into that. So you take a smaller amount of a hit into a huge mushroom cloud of an explosion when you add all of those folks in there. Everybody on a tier 2 pension does not need to be on tier 1. In my opinion, police, fire, corrections should all be on a tier 1 pension. They're the ones putting their lives on the line every single day. There's ways of solving it. I mean, with all of the gaming machines that we have in the state of Illinois, they could take a percentage of that proceeds. They could take a percentage of the proceeds that come in from all gaming and add that towards pensions. But they don't. They'd rather use that to spend on new programs. They'd rather use that to spend on anything else.
Sure.
All the marijuana
Yeah, that's been
money
crazy.
that's coming through. They could sit there and they could use that towards the pensions. But they don't. Why not?
Now, obviously, the double dipping is something that people talk about a lot. Or anything you could do with that to lessen the burden, I guess, on what is being paid out there?
I think there's a way of doing that, and it should start with the lawmakers. Why is a part-time job getting a lifetime benefit?
Right.
I mean, that's what a lawmaker does. I mean, a state representative, a senator, it's a part-time job. Yes, you can make it into a full-time job, but 90% of the lawmakers in Springfield have another job. So why are we offering a pension? It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It depends on, I think there should be a cap, but if I'm a school teacher and I work 20 years or 25 years and I go find another job and it happens to have a pension, but I'm qualified and I get hired for it, I don't know. But there should be a
But
cap.
there's also, yes.
There should be a cap. The reason why they had pensions in the first place is because nobody wanted to do those jobs. And they weren't paid very well.
Right.
So they offered a pension. You put in your 20 years, you served your community, you served your state, and here's your reward compared to, yeah, we can't pay as much as, you go into the private sector.
Right. And that is, again, John Cabello, and that wraps up this issues program on Illinois' pension problem. Hope it helped you learn a little bit more about it. Join us on our streaming channel next Thursday, where I go in-depth on the U.S. Senate race in Illinois to replace the retiring Dick Durbin.